Yeehaw, guys! It's day two. Woohoo! Okay, so how did you do yesterday? How did your purpose statement go? How did you feel about that? Did you make progress or did you stop yourself? Just a couple of questions for you to reflect on. No worries. Here we are. It's day two, and we're covering the 7 different types of boundaries. Who on earth knew there were so many boundaries? See, we tend to like ball everything all up together, and then we aren't clear where our boundaries are or what we're willing to do or not willing to do, and then nobody else is clear either. So we're going to run through the 7 different types of boundaries. Here we go. The first one is physical. Physical pretty much speaks for itself. It's everything that has to do with our physical self, our space, but also how we use our time and our things. I know it's just a pencil, but purses, bags, books are our things, right? So physical boundaries have to do with our physical self and then the physical things that we have, space, time, and material objects. Okay. The second one is sexual boundaries. Really, sexual boundaries speak for themselves again. It has to do with how much are you willing to do in a sexual experience? What are you not willing to do? Do you have boundaries around that for yourself? Do the other people that you're engaged with know what your boundaries are, right? So, sexual boundaries. The third one is spiritual. This really has to do with what you believe in a global worldly view here, right? Do you believe in God or Mother Earth or energy or uh, evolution, right? Like, just what is it that you believe in and what do you hold dear? This has to do with our spiritual boundaries. And are you susceptible to what other people say? Do you just buy into what other people say, right? So think about what your spiritual boundaries are. The other one is relational. This is the one we usually come up against, the one that typically is the biggest, most obvious one for us because it has to do with how other people treat us and how we are willing to engage in relationships. And all relationships, whether they're intimate, friendships, if you're a parent or if you're a child, right? And when I say child, you're an adult, but you still have a parent, right? And that one's a loose term too, right? Because I have a biological mother, but she's not really a parent. So there's a very clear boundary set there. Whole nother story, right? I just keep checking my list, making sure I'm covering everything here. The next one is legal. Okay, so most of the time when people think about a legal boundary, they're thinking, property lines and when can I call the cops and things like that. But think about legal as in also, if you travel, do you know the legal boundaries? Do you cross them readily? Do you engage in that kind of behavior? Or are you suppressed by the legal system? And what can you do to challenge that and stand up and have a voice? So the legal boundary is a very big subject, especially for some of us, right? And especially when it comes to women who've been sexually abused, because there's a lot of legal boundaries there that we need to be aware of and how to interact with them. And also, which ones do we set for ourselves? The next one is emotional. This one is a great boundary because it has to do with nothing else other than yourself, right? And the great thing is that emotions are all just indicators and you get to choose which emotion, but you have boundaries in place for when a certain emotion comes up, what you do to alter that and what emotion you'd rather feel, right? So, do you have emotional boundaries set for yourself? And then the last one is mental boundaries. Mental boundaries is different than emotion, and these ones tend to get linked up very easily. Emotions has to do with how you feel. Mental boundaries is more about opinions and thoughts and patterns. And are you stuck in a certain way of living? Are you rigid in that? And that keeps you from growing? My guess is if you're listening to this, that's probably not the case, right? But the mental boundaries are really about the choices that you make. Emotional boundaries are about the emotions that you feel. Two very separate things. So we have physical boundaries, sexual boundaries, spiritual boundaries, legal boundaries, relational boundaries, emotional boundaries, and mental boundaries. I almost drew a blank there for a second. Those are the 7 boundary types. Now think about which area you are the strongest in and which area are you the weakest in. And this really is just about bringing awareness, It's not meant to beat yourself up. It's not a tool here. Again, this is as great a place as any to start with awareness. Where are you strongest and where are you weakest? And just start to evaluate, how are you strong in the strong area and how can you apply that to the weak areas? And what is it about the weak areas that you feel weak in? Come back to the Facebook group, share, make sure to complete your homework. You have a list there in your email. Can't wait to see what you do. Come back for day 3. What are we doing? Oh, yes, it's how to say no. Great. Get an awesome tool tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. See you then.